a very beautiful community. Let's calm our nervous systems down and talk a little bit about the political world that's untethering itself, and meanwhile be gentle on the nervous systems as we do that. So I'm going to react to Zelensky's speech at the Munich Security Conference, and people are saying it's a great speech. It's not a great speech because you can't make a great speech under these circumstances. It's a chaotic speech, and Zelensky's mind is chaotic because what he has to deal with is adapting to a world, a new world, that hasn't yet taken shape. That requires positioning and language that hasn't been established yet. And that's an enormously difficult thing to do. Now, we've talked about how, in broad brushstrokes in Ukrainian domestic politics, Zelensky has had to adjust from one kind of narrative of victory that ran aground, was refuted by reality, into another that could never quite be pieced together. And he is still in the process of that kind of discourse transformation in Ukrainian domestic politics. Now, he is suddenly having to do that on the international stage. All the things that made sense to say before to different European powers, to the United States, don't quite make sense to say anymore. So it's a sort of an attempt to communicate in a world in which which speaks a language for which the dictionary is being only now created, only now reinvented. You have a situation where you've got on one side a sort of kamikaze explosion of imperial mania coming at Ukraine from the east. And then you have a pattern of imperial decline by the United States. The voices in the Trump administration are themselves cacophonous. Different people are saying different things, and the same people are saying different things in different media moments. It's very difficult to know what to cling to. The European Union is progressively weakening. European powers are not just speaking in the cacophonous chorus, but they are dealing with domestic crisis of democratic trust. And we go back to our analysis yesterday of J.D. Vance's speech, which was irresponsible because it was delivered from the vantage point of a destructive political project, Trump's project, but it contained important concerns addressed to the wrong audience at the wrong time, and with bad examples, but nevertheless important concerns. So the substance of Vance's concerns in the speech, right, are actually ones that evoke enormous sympathy in European populations, but not in European leaders. So this is a moment of transformation, a moment of gap between citizenries and their governments. It's a very difficult reality. Meanwhile, there is an anticipation of domestic transformation in Ukraine. I won't make a comment on the latest internal political developments in Ukraine, but you've got not just Putin pushing to have an election in Ukraine and to oust Zelensky. You've got Trump sort of taking one step into that scenario too, and talking about how Zelensky may need to go, how Zelensky's popularity is low, and so on. So you have US empire in retreat, imperial mania coming out of the Russian side on the Eastern Front. You have the Europeans shocked and panicked about US retreat, US imperial retreat, and US imperial redefinition. And with all of that change in the world, it's also clear that Ukrainian domestic politics will need to adjust and need to begin interacting with the global world in a different way, with different embassies, different understanding of alliances and interactions with different powers. And that all of that may happen with or without Zelensky. So he's trying to hold all of this together. The image for what he is doing is really like somebody who's been given a whole bunch of bits of wood in a kind of a misdirected order from IKEA, but they don't amount to a usable bit of furniture. He's trying to shove things into different holes and hope that something happens that gets him close enough to the bit of furniture, but it doesn't seem quite possible, and he keeps trying and trying and trying and trying. And is almost pulled in, kind of in a sympathetic sense, in a kind of a post-truth discourse where he needs to try saying different things that pull in different directions on different days to different audiences. So a very, very difficult situation where there is a bit of chaotic desperation on Zelensky's part, discombobulation and incapacity in many European capitals, major transformation happening by really an irresponsible political project in the United States that's in power because of the grotesque and systemic failure of technocratic and bureaucratic centrism. And you've got, imperial mania from the East that now is in a stronger position than it was before the Munich conference. So it's a very, very profoundly difficult situation whereby one is reacting to a changing world in which the changes to which you need to react to haven't yet taken shape. So that's, rather than sort of going bit by bit on what Zelensky said, I think that's the big picture reaction, a very, very difficult set of balances for him to strike. Now, a small remark about our community in this discombobulated world. In the last video on Vance's speech at this Munich Security Conference, we had an influx of bot-like pro-Trump behavior, injecting a little bit of vitriol into our comment section. Let me make two remarks about this and be absolutely clear about this. Number one, when that happens, it's always deceptive, because when you look around the back of the channel, you actually see what most people feel because you get a likes ratio and so on. So we're still getting video response with a 95% like rate, but there is an external infusion of Trump-like bot comments. So the first thing to say is don't be alarmed about it. And the second thing to say is that I will protect the nervous system of my community members. So you're welcome to make pro-Trump comments, but if they're expressed as unconstructive vitriol, so let's take an example, you leftist monkeys had it coming and you deserve it, then I will be adapting my policy of only removing comments which constitute direct threats of physical violence, to comments that are spammily and vitriolically toxic and undermine the central value of our meeting place here, which is that it's not what's said that matters, but that we're operating in a kind of sacred space to which we return and return and return, and which we keep a healthy environment for ourselves. So know that I'm keeping my eye out on that, and I'm committed to the value of our communication as a sacred space to which we return. Lots of love and talk soon.